Real talk, raw truth, raging hearts. Welcome to From the Minds of Raging Brats. Like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, I'm Heather, and this is From the Minds of Raging Brats. Welcome.
I'm Ashley. How are you doing?
I'm doing. I'm having some emotional all over the place, thanks to the files and EMDR and my own trauma, and I'm like,
Yeah, it's
not liking that.
It's definitely not an easy time to have gone through a lot of shit.
No, I think it's interesting too that I unintentionally that came up in EMDR today when this conversation has continued from last week on the trauma-informed conversations and trigger warnings and the debate on what survivors should and shouldn't have to prepare them or protect them from the world at large. There was still there may be some repeat content in today just because I consolidated the other two sections I had for last week into a more cohesive script for today. So there may be a little bit of overlap from last week, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But, last week when we were talking, it was clearly striking a nerve with both of us. We were both very engaged in the conversation, which is why it ended up going long.
Yeah.
We talked about communication style. We talked about education and how it can turn into domination. We talked about what happens when trauma language gets used as a battering ram instead of a bridge. And, we told the audience last week that we were really just getting started because there was quite a bit more to delve into. Because the deeper issue underneath that exchange was not personality. It was philosophy. It was this. What do we actually believe protects survivors? Is it warnings? Is it control? Is it exposure? Is it removal? Or is it regulation? So today we're going to talk about the uncomfortable middle. Not the extreme, not the moral performance, the middle. The place where most of us end up. Because life is very rarely black and white.
Almost never.
Even for those of us that have intense black and white thinking. And I say those of us because I often am among that myself.
I am. Very badly.
Yeah. I often have to get 2 or 3 different perspectives before my brain goes, oh, it's not a world-ending crisis after all? It's just a Tuesday? Oh, okay. My bad. Happy Tuesday. So let's start with the thing that gets treated like gospel online. Trigger warnings. Yes, they can be helpful. They can give people a moment of choice. They can create a buffer. They can allow someone to decide not today. That matters. But here's where people lose their footing. The research on trigger warnings is not as definitive as social media makes it sound. Multiple studies have shown that while trigger warnings can make people feel acknowledged, they do not consistently reduce distress in trauma survivors. In some cases, they increase anticipatory anxiety. In some cases, they reinforce the idea that the person is fragile. That doesn't mean warnings are bad. It means they are not a cure-all. And when you start building moral outrage around something that is not scientifically settled, you're not doing advocacy. You're doing ideology. A trigger warning is a courtesy.
Yeah, and that's always been my thing. Like, it's nice if people want to do that for you, but it is not mandatory for anybody to take care of your mental health if you are an adult.
It's also not a guarantee of safety. Just because there's a trigger warning doesn't mean you won't be triggered.
Exactly.
And I don't know about most people, but I know that a lot of people I've talked to have the same opinion that I do, that oftentimes when I see a trigger warning, I open it because now I need to know what's behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas if there was no trigger warning, as I'm scrolling, if it has anything to do with something I'm not interested in, I scroll faster.
Yeah. You do have a morbid curiosity.
Because my trauma says if I don't know what the danger is, I'm in more danger.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to expose myself to the trigger every time because I feel weak if I don't.
Yeah. See, for me, it doesn't really affect the way I look at things. If it has a trigger warning, cool. If it doesn't, cool. Like, I'm not drawn to it or repelled from it. It's just a thing that is there because I have such a thing with your issues or your issue and you need to fucking take care of them, and it is not ever general society's job to take care of what if there is somebody reading this that isn't gonna, like, respond well to it. Like, that's my own personal opinion about it.
Well, and realistically, advertising is catering to the audience they're trying to draw in, not the audience that's trying to be protected from it.
Very true.
We also need to stop pretending the internet is a trauma-informed environment. It is not.
No.
It is an algorithm-driven chaos machine designed to maximize engagement.
Yeah, and it usually doesn't really care whether it's positive or negative, it just needs the engagement.
And the reality is, engagement is often driven by outrage, shock, and intensity.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are the people out there that will put a trigger warning on something knowing somebody's going to push on it, being like, well, it's their fault now if they read it and they don't like it.
Yep. That old PYA attitude really does a disservice to humanity, but people will stand on it every day.
Yes.
They're going to protect their own ass before yours. They don't care.
Yes, and especially on the internet.
Yeah. So the real question becomes, are we going to teach survivors to navigate that environment, or are we going to teach them that the environment must adapt before they can exist safely? Because only one of those approaches gives a person power.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but as a survivor, the trauma happened out of my control.
Yeah.
The healing has all happened within my control.
Definitely agree with that.
So I'm just going to say, for me personally, the safety came in taking control back, not in the chaos. When the chaos hits, I now have tools that help me navigate that. I have a team of people that help me navigate that, both professional and personal. Like, it's not a one woman show, even though it appears that way.
Yeah.
So many people are like, oh, you're so strong. And yes, at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to do the work. But some days the work would never get done if I was left to my own means and my own devices. Because that's hard.
I do definitely understand that one. But, I think that really goes back to, like, trigger warnings. Like, I almost feel like they do a disservice, because it does make people feel like in real life they should have trigger warnings and safeties walking around in the real world too.
Yeah, I personally find trigger warnings on graphic imagery appropriate because for the purpose of not survivors. To be honest, it's never even entered my mind what a survivor might or might not think about until this debate.
Yeah.
The only thing that enters my mind is the innocent that haven't been traumatized yet. I'm like, I don't want my kid scrolling Facebook and seeing somebody's head blown off. If there's a trigger warning on there, he's less likely to end up in that image because he's scrolling for what draws his attention in the first 2 seconds.
Yeah. And I do definitely agree, especially on that point. Like, I'm somebody who doesn't really believe in trigger warnings, but to see that on like a website that I'm like, you guys are supposed to be so sanctioned and so corrected and have people monitoring everything, to see that on that website, that pissed me off. For that reason, I'm like, there are literal children on here.
And in that aspect, I do believe that apps that cater to children should absolutely enforce trigger warnings, or enforce that it be like YouTube where it's only 18 and above. Like, you have to mark that it's 18 and above so that kids don't have access to that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is really important to me. But I have never really looked at it from a victim or a survivor point, because for me, like I said last week, for me, the world already proved that they don't care about harming me. Or I wouldn't be sitting here talking about my trauma. So at this point, my safety, I don't rely on anybody else for that. And I mean anybody. I may be like, when we go camping, we go together because, it's safer in groups. And while that's true, at the end of the day, the only person I really know what I have available with is me.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that.
So if I'm going out with you and the kids camping, and I am expecting that you and the kids or the world's going to take care of me while I'm camping, I'm already set up for failure.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of experienced that on one camping trip. Somebody with that mentality, so.
The claim that sparked part of this debate was that shock-based content never leads to meaningful change. That it causes compassion fatigue, that it desensitizes. And yes, it sometimes does. Hell, I'll even say that it often can.
Oh, yeah.
But historically, shock has also forced cultural reckonings. Graphic documentation during the civil rights era shifted public perception. Images from the Vietnam War shifted public opinion. Footage of police brutality in the modern era has led to legal outcomes and policy conversations of change. Shock is not inherently ethical or unethical. It is contextual.
Yes.
The ethic question isn't, is shock bad? The ethical question is, who is being harmed in the process? Who consented? And is this awareness or is this exploitation? That's where the nuance lives. And honestly, the people that are posting a lot of this shock content, the part that's hard, and this part I will give her, even though she didn't make this point, I will give her this point. She did not consent, and neither did any other survivor consent to their trauma, whether it was specifically theirs or similar to what they've gone through, being used as shock to re-traumatize them over and over. That being said, there are no laws that prevent it, because everybody knows that it's a split deal. Like, as easy as it can cause harm, it can cause a catalyst for change.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, that just goes back to, unless this is your first day on the internet and you didn't go to school and nobody ever told you what the hell it was, why would you think it's there to cater to you?
Unfortunately, people do every day. And I feel like this person was so upset with the idea because they were, like I said, I believe it was because they were dysregulated, not because I didn't have valid points or she didn't have valid points. I think that she browbeat the hell out of me with her own point because she was so absolutely triggered and dysregulated, she could not see past her point.
That is
And
really
And I can see that happening because it happens to me. There are days where I'm scrolling the fucking internet and get triggered as fuck and have to get out. That's enough internet for the day. Me and the interwebs, we needed to stop talking. It's time for me to go only to Snapchat and send my happy little smoke videos.
Yeah, but that's the difference. You get off of the sites that aren't bothering you. You don't go tell somebody how they're re-traumatizing them posting some shit on the internet that has nothing to do with them. In all reality.
No. And if it's really bad, I reach out to my therapist. And I'm like, D2, I need help. Because I'm not equipped for this one. And then they help equip me. And then every time I get through something, I'm like, damn, I didn't think I was going to survive that. And I did. It wasn't bad enough that I survived the trauma, but I survived that too. I really am a fucking badass. And that may seem like conceited or whatever, but the reality is when you literally look at your life and all you see is survival after survival, even everyday life is a survival for triggers and new traumas and all that, like you start to get to a point where you get jaded.
Yes. But, that's what therapy and stuff is for.
Yeah, but if you're jaded and dysregulated,
yeah,
the world is only a scary place. But the more that you can find a team to help you regulate and tools to help you navigate life, even when it's hard, like each win, you look back and you realize you're stronger. The next win is not as hard to get to, and it'll be a bigger problem than the last one. And it'll still feel easier, not because it's easier, but because all of a sudden your confidence in yourself is building as you see yourself succeed where other people expect you to fail.
Yes, very true.
So even if we agreed that warnings are kind, exploitation is wrong, shock can harm, we still have to confront reality. Warnings will not always be there. Ethical standards will not always be followed. People will not always act responsibly. So what then? Do we collapse? Do we rage? Or do we build tools? Because here's the part that makes people flinch. Personal responsibility and healing is not victim blaming. It is reclamation of your fucking self. It's taking you back. The person that before you were hurt. And it may not feel like that originally, but you're slowly, when you choose to heal, you are slowly taking back the person before the trauma. With more knowledge, more resilience, and more strength. So you come out better. Yes. Is it a hard path? It fucking is. Can you choose to sit in misery and never heal and have a shit life? Absolutely. Choice is yours. Free will was given to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you do get a choice in all of these things. And if you choose to self-wallow and be in pity and think of yourself as a victim without giving yourself any tools, you're just inviting your whole life to be lonely and miserable.
Yeah. You can be a victim of something horrific and still be responsible for your recovery.
Yes.
You know, there's children, and I'm going to use this example, and it may infuriate or hurt some people's feelings, but there are a lot of addicts out here having babies born addicted to drugs, and those babies didn't ask for that.
Yep.
But you know what? When those kids hit peer pressure and shit for drugs, when they become teenagers and young adults, the path for them is the same as a recovering addict, not somebody experiencing peer pressure for the first time.
Exactly.
And nobody says, oh, well, you get a pass because your mom was a drug addict and you were born addicted. It's not your fault you were an addict before you even knew what addiction was.
No, half the time people will treat that kid worse and judge him worse because they're like, of course you fucking became an addict. Like, look who your parents were.
But then look at the kids, the same circumstances that the parent got immediately clean afterwards because they realized, oh, fuck, I fucked up. They got therapy. They changed their entire life. They became a healthy parent, fully involved. Those kids grow up and the parent recognizes teenage peer pressure coming up. They start making sure they have therapy. They surround them from small children in healthy friendships so that when those kids do hit peer pressure, first of all, it's not going to be the same level of peer pressure because they've got a healthy friend group. But also, when the kids that aren't from the friend group with the nasty, toxic peer pressure come in, they're going to have the whole friend group like, we'll kick your motherfucking ass. You know how bad that could destroy his life?
Yeah.
We'll whoop your fucking ass. Get away from him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people would be surprised how much your children's friends have to do with their personality and the things they choose to get into.
And kids that get into trouble more often than not, it's because they're around a friend group that is getting in trouble and they want to be cool.
Yep.
It's not even like a lot of kids are just born troublemakers. A lot of kids are born into abuse and poverty and they just learn how to survive the best they can. Yep. And if they have bad influences like parents in and out of jail and in and out of prison and on and off drugs, like it is a setup for failure. So, I mean, I think that if more schools and communities in mental health focused on getting kids into peer groups of kids, healthy kids their age, like kids that are into sports and things, as even like a big brother, like junior high kids with high school kids type stuff. And get them paired up like that again, bringing back this sense of community and a positive, healthy role model for kids on a daily basis. We could really help a lot of kids and get them away from this need to heal before. But having said all of that about kids, because I don't want to get completely off topic, like as an adult, all of that can be true, and it's still your responsibility to build the healthy friendships, to get the therapist, to fire them when they aren't the right one, and to continue to get new ones until you find one that works for you, not just go, I tried one, I'm good. Personalities are personalities, and we're all going to have different ones. Some clash, some don't. And, we just have to really get back to this sense of community, and we won't need so many of these trigger warnings and stuff because people are going to think about what they're doing and how it affects their community at large instead of just needing trigger warnings because nobody knows anybody anymore, and let's do the thing that draws in the most business.
Yeah.
If you do not build coping skills, the world controls your nervous system. One post, one image, one comment. And you're spiraling. That's not empowerment. That's vulnerability without armor. Therapy taught me this. EMDR taught me this. Bodywork taught me this. And I just want to say, those that don't do massage therapy for their body while they're doing therapy for their brain, you're missing a big step. There's a reason there's books out there called The Body Remembers the Score. Yeah, because you can heal your mind all you want. It's still going to revert back. It's like having black mold on your wall and not painting over it with kills to kill it. If you don't kill it first, you just paint over it with regular paint. In a matter of months, that black mold's coming through that paint.
Yeah, you just gave it food.
So, do the things that help you heal, not just what people say will help you heal. Really look into, when you're looking into your own healing, look into what works for you. Look up all the different healing modalities. Look at what you're drawn to, because not everybody heals the same. And while I am a huge advocate for therapy, I know people that have never used therapy. They used nature and they healed themselves.
Yep.
Granted, they were people that had connection to reservations and spirit lodges and other spiritual tools that help you heal, but still, they didn't use therapy. They used more natural settings, and that's okay. Use what works for you, but don't use nothing at all.
Yeah.
Healing is not, I never get triggered again. Healing is, I know how to come back. And the more you practice coming back, the less the world owns you. That's what I was talking about. Building that callus of the more you do it, you see how much easier it is the next time, even though the next time it's a harder problem. You're like, oh, it does get easier because you're building that callus, that resilience to, okay, yeah, the world isn't fair. The world sucks. And also the world is beautiful and amazing. And how I choose to interact is what I get from that.
That was very true.
Now, boundaries are actions. A boundary is not, please don't. A boundary is, if you do this, I will leave.
Yep.
If you cannot leave, you do not have a boundary. You have a wish.
Yeah.
That is why I disengaged from the conversation that started this. Not because I was wrong, not because I was ashamed, but because I value my regulation more than I value winning. That's what responsibility looks like in practice. Did I get dysregulated and go off on a tangent a couple of times? Yeah. Did I then realize I was starting to get on a tangent and I was dysregulated and remove myself? And then once regulated, reread everything and acknowledge that she had valid points in her assault. But I also get to acknowledge the fact that I too had valid points and she was refusing to see them because of her own dysregulation. That doesn't make a conversation. That makes two dysregulated people throwing mud at each other.
Yeah.
At that point, we become no better than chimpanzees. Like, strap a diaper on me and let me start throwing.
Yeah.
Well, because realistically, that's what it felt like. Like, I didn't feel like after the first reply, I did not feel like I was having a conversation with a person. I felt like I was being verbally assaulted by a government determined to be right.
And that's pretty much what it was.
It's like, bro, I should not feel like the government is assaulting me when it's just one woman.
Yeah.
But here's what I want you to sit with. All of you. Like, you deserve safety. You deserve protection. You deserve a world that didn't harm you. But the world is imperfect. And waiting for it to become perfect for you to feel powerful is a trap. Healing is not about controlling the environment. It's about strengthening yourself inside it. So ask yourself, when you feel triggered, are you building skills? Or are you waiting for someone else to behave differently? It's not judgment. It's just an invitation to really contemplate. And I don't say these things just to make people feel uncomfortable or to judge them or to make them feel judged, because realistically, there are days when I struggle. Today, I was in therapy EMDR for one thing, and something from the files hit my brain and I had to stop. I had to get my therapist to take us to the cool down place and to end the session because I could not manage the emotion anymore. I was so overwhelmed.
And
But I
there's nothing
couldn't.
wrong with being able to take a step back and protect yourself.
No, it's very necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was meaning was when I did that, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes, I will be okay, but I can't do this. I can't open this right now. Like, this isn't safe for me." And she was like, "That's very fair." And then when we got all wrapped up and she was like, "Are you sure you're going to be okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know how the week will go because oftentimes EMDR brings up stuff that I have to unpack during the week. But this was the first time that it came up so intense in an EMDR session, not later in the week."
Yeah.
That she was like, "We're starting to hit on some deep core traumas." Okay. I stopped because I want to be able to process that in a full session for that.
Yeah.
Where I have space to unpack that. We were at the end of my session. I am not unpacking something like that in a space of minutes.
No. Well, you can't.
No. And honestly, that's probably going to take me a few weeks of unpacking full sessions.
Yeah.
But I say that because I'm giving another example of where I had to advocate for myself, even from my own brain. I had to say, you know what? I need to exit stage left from this mental process because it's harming me. It's emotionally traumatizing me. That is not abandoning myself or telling myself I no longer get access to my brain. It's self-protection and regulation in a moment where I knew I didn't have the capacity to handle that.
Yeah.
Will I avoid that forever? Absolutely not. Based on how intense it was and how it came up all on its own, that'll probably be my next session, but it's on my terms. And if next session I go in there and I'm not feeling like being bombarded by that, then we just do talk therapy. We don't do EMDR because if it's too much, it's okay to say it's too much. Not today.
No.
The internet is so much truer.
It's like you said, that's why it's so important to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. And you yourself have had a lot of dysregulation the last week and a half where life has been hard.
It is it's very difficult, like, especially for somebody that basically trained their brain to crash the fuck out when things go wrong and to self-sabotage, because if one thing's gonna go wrong, I might as well make it all fucking go wrong. Unlearning that and new processing and actually letting myself sit with emotions and deal with it is a very new experience for me. And it is not one I would call comfortable, but it is necessary.
I definitely understand that. I brought that up because, you've panicked several times since the job situation. Yeah. But even in the panicking, you've taken yourself either to some solitude to give yourself some space to evaluate, or you've distracted yourself to give yourself some space to not spiral.
Yeah.
And while you don't always feel like you're doing a good job, the fact that you haven't self-sabotaged, you haven't blown up your life, you have your bills covered, you may be concerned because you would not be responsible if you weren't. That's reality. Like, if you're an adult and you have bills to pay and you aren't worried about them and you don't have $12 million in the bank, then you fucking an idiot. I'm sorry. You should be concerned about what's happening. Yeah. Unless you're independently wealthy.
Right?
But you haven't let it stop you. from living your life and doing the things you want to do and pursuing. And then by the time I left this weekend, you were like, I have this plan. This is what I'm doing Monday. This is what I'm doing Tuesday. And I'm going to do this until I figure out exactly what I want to do. And then I'm going to do this because this gives me the opportunity to do just that. And I'm like, just needed a little space.
Yeah, my brain, it forces me to panic in the beginning, but it's getting to the point where it doesn't keep me there anymore.
And that's the resiliency of building the muscle of, yes, life is hard. Life can suck. Life can fucking be a real piece of shit show right now. But also it can be beautiful and amazing in the same breath. And that's the hard part. Like, it's like, okay, I just lost my job and I feel like the world's falling apart. And I walked out and the fucking sun was in the sky and the clouds were pink and it was blue. And I didn't know what to do because it was so fucking beautiful. But I just wanted to cry.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly it.
It's like, well, sometimes cry and acknowledge it's beautiful. Cry while you're watching it.
Yeah, half the time that is the best therapy.
Well, I know this episode is going to be a little shorter than normal, not because we don't have content. I just don't want to drag this topic on and on and on. And we definitely have other topics that are going to be more interesting coming up. So I think we're going to wrap up early tonight. We're about 10, 15 minutes shorter than normal. But I want to leave y'all with this thought. If your children are going out into the world, and the world is a dangerous place, it just is. And it's chaotic. Are you going to teach that child to wait for the world to take care of them? Or are you going to walk them through every terrible scenario you can imagine and prepare them for it so that when the world comes at them hard, because it does everybody, there's nobody that escapes this life unscathed in some way or another. Even those that have born with a silver spoon, the whole nine, that's just not reality.
Yeah.
So think about that. And if your answer is you would want to prepare them to handle the world with or without the world being kind to them, then don't you think that you deserve the same thing when it comes to your trauma triggers? To prepare yourself so that if the world isn't kind, which most of the time it's not, and if the world doesn't care about your triggers, which it doesn't, then when they do hit, you already know what to do to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I say that not out of judgment, but I say that out of love, because there's nobody going through trauma, no survivor of trauma that I want to feel unsafe just navigating the world. And I have often felt that myself. But I have learned through the years that you can take your power back. You can be safe on your terms. Can you protect yourself from everything? No. But that's why you build tools and people in your corner, so that when life does take you out, even with all the tools, you have the people that pick you back up, that sing you your soul song when you forget how to sing at all.
Very true.
So with that, hello y'all. We will see y'all next week. Oh, I lied. Week after next.
Yes.
Just until the end of March. Bi-weekly just till the end of March. So love y'all. Rage responsibly. See you next week.
Right.
We're also available on Spotify. We said what we said, and we're just getting started. Thanks for listening. Now go rage responsibly. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.